And we have Uri on the line right now, calling in from his home. Uri, welcome to WPFW.
Great to talk to you, Rusty.
Yes, it has been a while. And so tell us about the Passion of Octavius Cato. This is really fascinating. It's the Cato Freedom Orchestra and Barbara Walker. I mean, this is an amazing piece of work.
You know, it originated, I think, around 2014. I'm originally from Philadelphia, and Cato's story is centered in Philadelphia, and they finally erected a statue in his honor. He was a civil rights leader and a teacher who was murdered in 1871 in Philadelphia during the election, on Election Day.
1871.
In 1871.
Right,
so it was right after the amendments were passed and slavery had ended and voting rights were beginning, but there's still a lot of tension in Philadelphia. He was murdered, and his murderer got away with it. But I was asked to write a piece that involved the Philadelphia Orchestra and gospel choirs in Philadelphia to celebrate the statue that was put up.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so that was the first performance of it. And I guess when after Trump got elected, a lot of the musicians that were part of that, we stayed in contact, and we decided to try to make a recording on our own of that piece with a slightly smaller orchestra,
mm-hmm.
but also with a gospel choir with musicians from Philadelphia and also New York, and with Barbara and with the piano trio. And so that's the recording that you just heard. And, we've been able to perform that piece. I just did a version of it with the Boston Symphony about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, fantastic. Here's this incidents that occurred over 150 years ago, right on the Reconstruction is right in the middle of it, in terms of what was happening with voting rights for African Americans who were coming out of slavery and people getting elected to Congress, and then it was all taken away.
That's right.
And it's all, there seems to be a movement to take things away again, and this is so relevant, Uri. This is really fantastic.
I mean, if you really, get into the history and studying it, and something I was really interested, because I'd heard the story of Cato when I was growing up in Philly and playing around in Philly. But I realized that many people hadn't heard that story and don't really know the history of the United States. And once you start really delving into it, you really see that a lot of the stuff that's going on today has been going on for a long time. And it's a very long and, very intense story, really, about our history.
Absolutely. So you were growing up in Philadelphia, a city of an incredible array of great pianists. Let's see, Ray Bryant. It was one that comes into mind, really. McCoy Tyner came up in Philly, and just incredible Bobby Timmons. It's just right. And I'm sure you can name a gazillion more. So what got you into piano growing up in Philadelphia?
I was like a lot of young kids that was taking piano lessons just as a kid, but when I started to hear the music, and it was, through listening to WRTI, and
mm-hmm.
there were a lot of live gigs in Philly, you could actually see people like Philly Joe Jones playing
mm-hmm.
in clubs. And, I just sort of got drawn into that, and I started studying piano with another pianist who was actually a French pianist who ended up settling in Philadelphia, named Bernard Pfeiffer, who had a lot of students. And, I guess I met him when I was about 12 or 13. And once I got under him, it was, he made me really work hard about music and really studying music and starting to try to go out and play. And it just sort of put me on that path with a lot of other young musicians in the city, I think,
mm-hmm.
just growing up trying to play music. And, in a way, it was a very enriching experience with a lot of mentors and a lot of different schools of thought about how to play and what was happening in the music. But as a young person, just soaking it all up, it was really interesting. So it was something I think that, when I later moved to New York, I didn't really appreciate what was going on in Philadelphia until I had left it.
And so, once what you came from, right? Absolutely. Who were some of the people you worked with as you were getting started professionally?
I mean, I first of all really just tried to play with the older cats, people like Philly Joe Jones, Hank Mobley, Bobby Dorr, Mickey Roker, Pat Martino. But there was also sort of a more out music scene happening in Philadelphia at that time, and also a funk and pop scene that was coming out of the Philly International thing, or even playing with people like Jamaluddin Tacuma and Cornell Rochester. All those strands were happening. And, it was interesting also just coming up as a pianist in general, because you could play, I just saw that it was sort of an entree into a lot of different types of music. You could play gospel music, salsa, accompany choirs, play for dance classes, all these different worlds that needed music and had music, within them, where the piano was, played a strong role in it. I started to get drawn into all these different worlds and really start to think about what, how music is made up of, and how all these different types of music can interact with each other, and what makes them special in their own thing. And so for me, it was really a beautiful learning experience with all these situations to play in.
In the I guess it was the 90s, just before the turn of the century, you did some incredibly amazing extended pieces of music. You took Bach's Goldberg's Variations and orchestrated it, and had gospel vocals and everything. How did you conceive doing that?
The idea of the theme and variations in classical music, it sort of has a lot of parallels to how jazz musicians improvise over changes. And the idea of just sort of having a set of changes and then sort of following, in your own way, in my own way, what Bach was doing, where he has this incredible variety of variations. Sometimes he's imitating other styles. Sometimes there's a lot of virtuosity in it. Sometimes there's sort of a deliberate effort to be funny. He's combining two drinking songs at the end to show it's sort of like a musical drinking party. All those things come into play, and I just thought if I could play the Bach pieces in different ways, but also write my own variations that sort of mirror the types of techniques that he was using, that could be a way to sort of come up with a parallel way of playing that piece, and also to involve a lot of different players, because especially when I was making the recording, I was really, everybody wanted to be part of it. A lot of the people I knew were saying, we can play this, we can do that. And even just trying to get the thing on the road, when we would play it, there were so many different opportunities to play with musicians from where we were playing, and like we would travel and we would invite musicians to play, all on this idea of playing over these changes.
I happened to be up in New York when you did it at the Jazz Standard. It was just awesome to see it performed live, having had it on recording. It was just, and you did a similar thing with Mahler. So how did you approach Mahler differently from what you were doing with the Bach?
I think with Mahler it was more it wasn't so much the idea of the formality of, taking like changes and trying to do different things with it. It was more, I guess, dealing with his biography. So a lot of it had to do with sort of taking his music and arranging it for a group of improvisers that could use, the changes that he had, or the types of things that he was setting up. And that was really one of the first projects that I did using classical music. And what I saw was that it demanded a different type of improvisational response, let's say, than just playing, over changes. It sort of meant delving into different styles of music and sort of reconnecting Mahler's, Jewish past with klezmer music, and a lot of the music that Mahler included in his music that we could play in different ways. So it was sort of like a text over a text. But
wow.
It was also something where when different musicians did it, I would really see the different approaches that you could have to it. So it's just one of those things that's very interesting when you set something up and then it sort of takes a life of its own.
So this coming Monday, though, it's going to be very spared down, a solo piano concert at the Decatur House Museum, sponsored by the Piano Jazz DC that Burnett Thompson's been doing for quite a while now. So how are you going to approach this as a solo pianist?
I think I might try to include some of these other types of projects that I've done, or at least do maybe solo versions of some Mahler pieces, or maybe some of the Goldbergs, but also because it's, a good opportunity to play some standards and some free improvisations and some original songs. I've been friendly with Burnett for a while, and
right.
I'm glad that he invited me down to play.
Sure.
And I've been practicing, so I'm trying to get my piano together. When you play solo, you're very exposed. I like playing in groups a lot of times because there's a lot of variety in the sound. But I definitely appreciate the opportunity and the challenge of playing solo piano. And so I'll try to include a lot of different types of music that I'm into.
Well, we're really looking forward to it. So what else do you have coming up in terms of compositions or recordings?
I have a new CD that just came out called Agent Orange, which was a piece I wrote for the Brussels Philharmonic, sort of against Trump. And it includes Dave Liebman and DJ Olive and John Hebert and the orchestra, and sort of goes through different chapters. So that's, I've been playing, as I said, sometimes with bigger ensembles, but I've also been, trying to concentrate on small group stuff like that I have going, like I'm playing trio. I have a gig up in New York at Mesro.
Okay, good. Weeks. Fantastic.
Playing with Mark Elias and Ben Porowski, and some other stuff that I'm looking forward to recording as soon as I get my money together, and try to keep on doing it. So we'll see what happens. Well,
I'm really excited that you're coming to DC. It's been a while since you've been this year, so this is really good. And folks, this is going to be at the Decatur House Monday night, Decatur House Museum at 7 o'clock. And you can go to pianojazz.com for ticket information on this. Again, these concerts have all been sold out, so you want to get online. But he's also live streaming it. Burnett has been doing this also. So again, Piano Jazz DC is in its 9th season, and I've interviewed just about all of the artists that Burnett has presented. It's been a real honor to be a part of it. So again, Piano Jazz DC is the website to go to for ticket information. And Uri Caine, it's been a real pleasure talking with you.
Likewise.
We're going back a few years for an example of your solo piano from this Vinter recording, Solitaire, and I think you selected "Inhaling You" to feature some solo piano.
Okay.
So we'll hear it. And again, Uri Caine at the Decatur House on Monday. Thanks again for calling in, Uri.
Thank you so much.
See you then. Bye now.
Take care. Bye-bye.